Welcome to Cox OC Connection. I'm Lacy Kelly, and this is Cox Civic Connection, where we visit with civic leaders. Today we have Frank Mickadeit, who is a columnist with the Orange County Register, and although he isn't a civic leader, he certainly writes about them. Thanks for coming, Frank.
You're welcome. Good to be here.
Well, I've been a longtime fan of your column, and you have a very unique brand of storytelling. Can you tell us, how do you decide what to write about and what topics you're going to cover?
Well, basically it's whoever will call me back. Some days it feels that way. You know, I get my ideas from many sources. I read the papers. I listen to talk radio. I listen to what my editor has to tell me. But mostly I get emails and phone calls from people, and I sort through them. You know, I get hundreds of emails, and I try to get back to everyone, but I know I don't. But I spend a good amount of time kind of triaging the hundreds of emails I get to see, okay, what could I make out of this? What's different? What could be done that a regular reporter is not going to cover?
Mm-hmm. Well, and your column is very unique. So tell us, what are you looking at or tracking right now? What are you following or researching?
Oh, boy. At any given time, I probably have about 5 things going. And, well, I'm looking at the Great Park. You know, politically, okay, that's a real interesting story. So I'm kind of I guess I could say I'm always kind of looking at the Great Park and seeing what's going on there, but I've got my fingers on that. I plan to start looking into Anaheim a bit because that's getting interesting. I've covered Costa Mesa in the past. I haven't revisited them lately, but I'll be getting to them pretty soon. Santa Ana's got a new city manager, mm-hmm, so I kind of want to see how that's going to look. So that's kind of what municipally, that's kind of what I'm looking at. You're starting to hear rumblings about who's running for what next year. We've got a lot of open seats, so there'll be some election stuff I'll start looking into. But then the human interest stuff, I'm always fascinated by. I always try to find just the little nuggets, and at any given time, I'm juggling 2 or 3 ideas on that front too.
Yeah, one of them that I remember, just to for a minute take a diversion, is a young kid that you came across that was washing cars and kind of making his way and stuff. That was a really interesting story, so I appreciate your human interest things that you do as well.
Yeah, so that was pretty typical, you know. I live in Costa Mesa, kind of on the Santa Ana-Costa Mesa border, and when I go to work on the weekends, when I go into the newsroom on the other side of Santa Ana, I'll always drive through the city of Santa Ana on a weekend. I mean, you could always find a story. If I were a journalism professor and I wanted to give my students an interesting assignment, I would just set them loose in Santa Ana on a weekend day, and tell them to come back with a story. So anyway, I'm driving down the street one day in Santa Ana on my way into work, and I see this guy doing a commercial car wash out of his house, out of his driveway. I don't know, there's got to be a story there. So I just stopped and talked to him, ended up with a column. Then he gets his washing equipment stolen, and my readers donate about, I don't know, it was $5,000 or $6,000. I got him a truck and yeah. So yeah, those kinds of things. That's especially when it's so serendipitous like that.
Yeah.
That's what I live for.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was a great column, one of many. But shifting gears a little bit, we normally don't focus on politics in this show. We just try to focus on policy. But you are following politics, so tell us some of the politics that you're tracking specifically in South County, and how you see the assembly race and filling of John Campbell's seat sort of playing out in the coming elections.
Well, both of those are going to be pretty interesting. The assembly seat we're talking about is the one that Diane Harkey was in, and she's moving on. And up until a few days ago, there were, I think, 5 people with relative levels of name ID in that race. And then just recently, the guy who a lot of people thought had the best chance, Steve Barrick, dropped out.
Yeah.
And I just talked to Steve today, as a matter of fact, and I was trying to get a sense of where he's going with his endorsement, since it's obviously going to be coveted by the other 4. And He's not sane. He's visiting all the campaigns, and he may end up not endorsing anybody. It's hard to say at this point, but he's not sane. But it will be really very interesting. The Rancho Santa Margarita candidate, Jesse Petrillo, is very good campaigner. He came out of nowhere to win this seat on the Rancho Santa Margarita City Council a few years ago, and he did it by walking the city. I think he walked the city twice, he told me.
Okay.
And that is just, I mean, he showed it can be done with no name ID at all. So, and now he's got name ID, so he's going to start walking that assembly district, and the other 3 people who are in that race are while they all have their own constituencies with name ID, I think Petrillo is going to give him a really, really hard run. The guy's a hard worker, and he's in the military, which is always good in this county.
Right, right.
As for the congressional race, the big question is John Moorlach coming in or not? Mimi Walters, of course, is very much in. She's wrapped up a lot of endorsements. She's got tremendous name ID. There are 2 other gentlemen who have less name ID who I don't see as being as nearly as big a factor. Whether Moorlach comes in or not, I think he's going to. I just talked to him very recently. I think we're going to see an announcement very soon, is my guess. It was purely a family thing with him. He wanted to spend time with his family.
Sure.
And before he announced. So, and so you're going to have these 2 heavyweights,
right.
Mimi Walters and John Moorlach, who both have tremendous name ID, and John's practically a folk hero.
We'll look forward to your columns on that. We appreciate your time today visiting with us.
It's good to be here anytime.
That's it for this segment. Stay tuned for our second guest.